Let's go back to the 2014 NFL season. This season, Aaron Rodgers won MVP, leading the Packers to a 12-4 record and finishing with the number 2 seed in the NFC, and they would have won the NFC Championship, but they blew a 16-0 lead to the reigning Super Bowl champs in the Seahawks. Also this season, J.J. Watt won yet again another Defensive Player of the Year award, and honestly, should have won MVP, and that's why he was ranked number 1 in the NFL's top 100 players of 2015. And then, obviously, arguably the most iconic moment in NFL history took place when Malcolm Butler intercepted Russell Wilson inside the 3-yard line to secure the Patriots Super Bowl 49, and one of, like I said, maybe the most iconic moment in NFL history. But what also happened in 2014 was that the Dallas Cowboys had easily their best season since 2007. The Cowboys finished with a 12-4 record and was one of the best teams in the NFL that season, but in a stacked NFC that was somehow only good for 3rd seed in the conference. Quarterback Tony Romo had another good season. By the way, one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time. 3,705 passing yards, 34 touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions, and he was selected to his 4th Pro Bowl team. At this point, Dez Bryant had already established himself as one of the best receivers in the NFL, and he was continuing to prove that point as he had another Pro Bowl season in 2014, racking up 88 catches, 1,320 yards, and it's an insane 16 touchdowns. During this time frame, the Dallas Cowboys had one of the best O-line groups in the NFL, as center Travis Frederick was selected to the Pro Bowl team, and Zach Martin and Tyron Smith were also selected to the Pro Bowl team, but they were also selected to the All-Pro team. And Zach Martin, this was his first season in the NFL. He was going to be one of the best linemen for years to come. But the reason, without a doubt, the Cowboys were so good this season was because of running back DeMarco Murray. But before the season, he was maybe a top 15, borderline top 10 running back. No one saw him as one of the best running backs in the NFL, and DeMarco Murray had one of the best running back seasons we had seen in a long time, as he would rush for 1,845 yards and 13 touchdowns, was selected to the Pro Bowl team, and won Offensive Player of the Year. And by the way, he finished 3rd in MVP voting. He had one of the best running back seasons of the 2010s. The Cowboys would squeak out a victory against the Lions, the wild card 24-20, granted with a bit of controversy, but a win is a win, and they were moving on. In the divisional round, they had 4 minutes left to go in the game, and they were down by 5 to the Packers, and they had a 4th and 2 in the Green Bay's territory, and they looked like they could convert it. They looked like they had a real shot of winning this game, and if they won this game, it would be the first time in 19 years the Cowboys would be going to the NFC Championship game. Well, you might know how the story goes. Dez Bryant would catch Tony Romo's pass on 4th and 2 near the end zone, but they would say that he actually didn't catch the ball, and to this day, it's one of the most controversial calls in NFL history. The Packers would get the ball back, take control of the rest of the game, and the Cowboys would lose 26-21, ending one of the best seasons in Cowboys franchise history. It was now time for the offseason, and the Cowboys had a big decision to make. Both Dez Bryant and DeMarco Murray were free agents, but they could only keep one of them. And they decided to keep Dez Bryant because the receiver position has longer longevity than the running back position, which makes sense. So DeMarco Murray was no longer going to be a Cowboy. DeMarco Murray would go ahead and sign with the division rival Eagles, and after his Offensive Player of the Year season, he would have one of the worst seasons of his career. Only 700 yards on 193 carries, only 7 touchdowns in 15 games played. Genuinely such a crazy downfall from 2014. Despite losing to DeMarco Murray, the Cowboys were still projected to be one of the better teams in the NFL. Most people had them finishing 1st or 2nd in the NFC East. Even though they lost Murray, they still had a phenomenal O-line. They added some key, decent pieces on defense. They still had Dez Bryant. They still had Tony Romo. Things looked like they were going to go well. And after the first 2 games, it looked like that prediction was right. It looked like the Cowboys were going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. Yet again, in Week 1 against the Giants, they won on a game-winning touchdown from Romo to Jason Witten that got them the win. Obviously, game-winning touchdown. And then the next game, they destroyed the other division rival, the Eagles, 20-10, off to a 2-0 start. But late during that game, the season for the Cowboys would take a turn for the worst, as quarterback Tony Romo in the 4th quarter would suffer a fractured collarbone and would be out for the next 9 weeks. So they would have to turn to their backup quarterbacks for the foreseeable future, and this was horrible for the Cowboys. Little did anyone know that this was actually the start of the end of Tony Romo's career. While they were waiting for Tony Romo's return, they would go through multiple quarterbacks over the span of the next 7 weeks, and by week 10, game 9, they would go from playoff hopeful, playoff contender in week 2 to one of the worst teams in the NFL by week 10. But finally, Tony Romo would return in Week 11 against the Dolphins, and there really wasn't a lot of hope left for this Cowboys team, but he would spark some hope as he would help the Cowboys snap a 7-game losing streak and beat the Dolphins 24-14. Again, there wasn't a lot of hope left for this Cowboys team, but hey, Tony Romo coming back, maybe something can happen. Maybe they don't finish 3-13 or 4-12, maybe 6-10. It's not terrible. Now, just a few days later on Thanksgiving, the Cowboys would take on the undefeated 2015 Carolina Panthers, and with Tony Romo being back, there was some hope that the Cowboys could actually win. In fact, I'm pretty sure that they were the favorites coming into this game, which is absolutely unreal. And looking back with hindsight, this is the most delusional thing to think of. Obviously, the undefeated Panthers took care of the 3-7 Dallas Cowboys 33-14 in what was one of the more iconic games from that 15-1 Panther season. To make matters even worse, Tony Romo would re-suffer his collarbone injury, and this would put him out for the entire season, and this would basically mark the end of the 2015 Dallas Cowboys season. The Cowboys would finish 4-12 on the season, take Ezekiel Elliott in the first round, but in the mid to late rounds, they wanted to draft a quarterback because Tony Romo's injuries were getting pretty concerning, and so they wanted to take a backup quarterback just in case. So they looked at Penn State's Christian Hackabert and Baylor's Bryce Petty, but instead they would take Mississippi State's Dak Prescott, which 9-year-old me was absolutely hyped for. Even before the draft, this is who I wanted. I wanted the Cowboys to take Dak because I had a good feeling he could turn out to be a pretty solid player for us. I was hyped. And Dak Prescott was balling in the preseason. In just his first game alone in the first half, he went 10 for 12, 139 yards, and a touchdown to Dez Bryant and Terrence Williams. But of course, since he was a rookie and Tony Romo has been around forever, they're going to give the start to Tony Romo for the regular season. But still, seeing Dak Prescott ball out was a great sign for things to come. That wasn't until week 3 of the preseason though, when Tony Romo was playing, got sacked, and broke his back, and he was going to miss 6 to 10 weeks, which would thrust in Dak Prescott into the starting lineup. And now Tony Romo's injury concerns are getting worse than ever. But what about Dak Prescott? I mean, yeah, he was playing well in the preseason, but that's the preseason. We don't know how good he's going to do, and when the regular season comes, should we be scared? Should we trust him? Well, Dak Prescott would casually go on to have one of the best rookie quarterback seasons in NFL history, as him and the other rookie running back, Ezekiel Elliott, would lead the Cowboys to a 13-3 record, one of their best seasons in franchise history, and the number 1 seed in the NFC. And at one point in the season, Tony Romo was obviously back and healthy and ready to go, but the Cowboys were doing so good that they decided to keep Dak Prescott as the starter. Now, the Cowboys would go on to lose in the divisional round 34-31, and this is still the most heartbreaking loss I've experienced as maybe a sports fan in general, but the future was bright, and it was Dak Prescott's team moving forward. He was going to be the starter, which meant the Tony Romo era was officially over in Dallas. But another question was, what was next for Tony Romo? And the Texans wanted him to be their quarterback, but with him suffering with injuries, with him getting old with age, and the team he played for his entire career now moving on from him, Tony Romo would choose retirement, and on April 4th, 2017, he would retire from the NFL. The Tony Romo era in Dallas is forgettable for a lot of people, but also really underrated, and it was overshadowed by the fact that Tony Romo only won 2 postseason games during his time in Dallas. But Cowboys fans will never forget what Tony Romo did for the franchise, and the same is going for the Dak Prescott era. So far, he only has 2 playoff wins as well. It's looking very similar to what Tony Romo had to deal with during his time in Dallas, and let's just hope Jerry Jones dies soon. And that's it, bye.